Please become a Patreon and support the show. Merci.
And now our host, Stephen Lee Morris.
This week, we're joined by Jeannine, Wisnosky, Stehlin, and Jack Stehlin, the married couple who together have run the New American Theatre for over 20 years. The New American Theatre, formerly known as Circus Theatricals. They have operated out of venues such as the Hudson Theatre, the Hayworth Theatre, the Odyssey Theatre, and a space they leased on Wilton Place. They are currently a gypsy theatre company. We will be discussing cats. Jeannine, in particular, is a member of LA's ASPCA and fosters kittens for them, as well as their plans for their future moving forward, as well as how they met and why they do what they do. Jeannine, Wisnosky Stehlin, and Jack Stehlin, welcome to Animal Farm.
Thank you.
I never left. I've been there forever.
Let's start with the things that matter to a show called Animal Farm. I know you run a very important theater in Los Angeles, and you have a distinguished decades of creating theater, but that really doesn't matter. Let's talk about the cats, which have been showing up on Facebook. You have 3 daughters. We'll get to how you met as a producing entity of theater. We'll get to that, but let's start with the daughters who were at home during the pandemic, and then how all these cats showed up. Jeannine?
Sure. I can't start this. Thank you for having us, Stephen. But I cannot start this without pointing out there is a third person in this interview, and that's Coco Ginger Cinnamon up here.
Yes.
Sitting on this cat tree. Her favorite perch.
Coco is a bit of a steam sealer, I have to.
Yeah, it's hard. I actually was concerned about the upstaging, but
Jack doesn't like to be upstaged.
I'm always looking. I got an eye back here, and I know when things are happening.
At least she's sleeping right now.
But I like that you called Coco a person. That's a dead giveaway of where Jeannine's at. I probably wouldn't call Coco a person, but Jeannine has that relationship.
First of all, I understand the difference between cats and people, but she is her own.
A personage.
Yes. So.
Well, we'll get to that, but I'd like to know, what is the difference? Cats preen, they take care of themselves, they're narcissistic, and they don't do anything. How are they different from people?
Cats are, they do preen, so do people. They are narcissistic. I think almost all humans have that tendency, at least once in their life. I'll just say that. But what I love about cats, the cats that we fostered 9, is that they are so giving and loving without asking any questions of you, but feed me. And they purr and are, I think, especially during this pandemic, have been the most profound comfort animals I can ever have imagined. So that's why cats, you had an answer.
Well, no, I think that all of that's true. And just first, and then
I'm waiting for the however. I'm waiting for the however.
I am too. Please go ahead.
All of that is true. And Jeannine is definitely the expert of the two of us. But
heard that.
I loved cats when I was a young kid, and we had a couple in our house. And what I realized in this past year and a half is I was on the run, and there was never a time when I could even say to myself, boy, I'd love to get a dog, or we should get some cats. And I felt like I've been literally on the run without time for maybe that relationship for quite a few decades. So that's my excuse for maybe not being connected to a pet earlier.
What was your childhood cat's name, Jack? What was its name?
We had a cat named Mandy, and then there was one called Ugly. And that was a bad name. I don't know why that name got through.
That's borderline
the cat
abuse.
was not ugly.
Is that why you joined the LA ASPCA?
First
to get
because
guard against the likes of
exactly.
But can I finish? There's one thought I wanted to say about cats. So I had this distance from our cats, our pets, and then there was this time that I spent with them, especially since Jeannine and my daughters were really occupied by the kittens much more than me, hands-on. I was sort of spending time with our originals. And something happened that I began to think that I could perceive something inside of their eyes, that I was perceiving some kind of communication from them. And that was really the first time I've had this experience in my life with pets. And it's profound and it's beautiful. And to describe it beyond that might be kind of silly, but that is what happened for me. And it's been a wonderful thing to have that. And I'll sit with the cat now, with our original Coco, and just look at her and then every once in a while she'll look up at me and allow me to see into her eyes, and something is being said that's meaningful. So that sounds silly. That's all I had to say. That's the experience I feel like I've been lucky to have in this last year or so, having the time to just have enough time to take the time to see if that perception has something in it and develop it by joining into it. And the more I join into it, the more it seems to be there, which is.
I'd love to make a glib remark about how well do they play fetch or something like that, but your description is so lovely, and I think that kind of glib humor is probably not the best retort. Yeah.
We'll take any humor we can get, Steven, so it's okay. You have to worry.
I've had my Coco and then Kendall, our foster fail from one of our last year's foster batch, actually bat a ball back and forth, sit on the kitchen floor.
Oh, sure.
And they will hit it back. So they won't play fetch, like take the ball and then bring it back to you. Although I do know a person whose cat does do that. But they will actually play and have that kind of
do they come when called?
Yes.
Well, there you go. That's a start.
But you know what, we work really hard, like we're part of the ASPCA kitten foster program, and when we get cats or little tiny baby kittens, we work really hard on socializing them so they're not the aloof under the bed hiders that people complain about, that they're cats who won't see a person, won't run away. They're cats who come to you. So we work really hard, make sure that they like being held and cuddled, and they come when they call. When you call them, we come when they call us too. But it is true. Okay, I'll be there. But it's something we really work hard on doing. So when you get a cat who is not socialized, those are the ones that people see.
The feral cats.
Yeah, because they just haven't had that human socialization. Sure. They need it before 12 weeks, basically. So, which is why in the kitten foster program, we get them between, we've had some that are between just over a week old.
You had a cat that's over a week old, so that means you have to feed it by bottle, right?
Yeah. So last year, our second batch of foster kittens were they said they were 11 days, but they were like 6 days old. And we had to, every hour and a half to 2 hours, just like a newborn infant, feed them with formula from a bottle. And because the mother wasn't there. And so we had little 1.5 millimeter syringes with a little teeny tiny nipple on top, like a bottle nipple, teeny. And we'd have to feed them this. And then something that I did not know, and it should have been obvious to me, having 3 kids, is that you also have to hold them over your shoulder and burp them.
So how does the mother cat do that, or know that?
The mother cat, when I was a kid, we had, I don't know why it never occurred to our family in Ohio to have our cats neutered and spayed. I don't think you did it as much back then. I don't know. But we had a lot of litters of kittens with our cats. And the mother, first of all, she feeds them, from herself. So there's not the air in a bottle.
Okay.
It doesn't have that. But then also the mother, after they're fed, spends a lot of time grooming the kittens. And all that stimulation causes them, I'm guessing, to burp. and do all
Nature
that.
has a way of figuring this stuff out. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, as a chicken
Exactly.
owner, I just can't believe the creative ways the mothers support their chicks that we wouldn't even. Well, I won't get it. We're not talking about chickens. We're talking about cats. But
Well, chickens are interesting too, you know. When I was growing up, my grandparents lived in Pennsylvania. We went and visited them a lot, and they had my family heritage is Polish and Slovak. They were from Slovakia, but they had a lot of Polish hens and chickens. I mean, Polish roosters and chickens, and they were just fascinating. We would just sit there as kids, you know, just watch them, and every once in a while we were allowed to feed them.
how did you guys meet?
I at least experienced the most wonderful fairy tale, but our meeting certainly had something to do with theater. But I arrived in town from New York, having really stayed in New York for quite a while. I was a grown person when I arrived here in LA, hoping to get involved with the industry of Hollywood as best I could, and having done off-Broadway and theater in New York and regional for years and years and years, I finally thought, oh my, I'm going to have to go to LA. I was being told to go to LA for years by agents and so forth. So finally, you know, the real part of the story for me was how I got myself out here, and in a way swore theater off for a while, because I guess I got it in my head. Well, if you want to make that transition to Hollywood, you know, you're going to have to really concentrate and make it about that. And so I had that in my head that that's what I was going to do, because here I was in New York doing well and in poverty. So it had to happen. So I was desperate to make it happen. I get here. First person I call is a dear friend of mine and a playwright, John Bunzel, who I'm sure that you know, or we just did his latest play a couple of years ago, called Boxing Lessons. But so he's here in town. I call him up, literally like the first day I'm here. Invite me somewhere, take me out, something, you know, I'm here, let's do something. He's having his play read at the Hudson Theater with a group of I think they call it the LA Playwrights Group. His play was being read and there was going to be a critique. He invited me. I stayed for the critique, said a few words. And a guy named Gary Bloomsack, who you probably remember from the Hudson days.
Yes.
Invited me out with John to have some spaghetti right afterwards. And his dilemma was he was looking for an artistic director for the Hudson Guild, what was called the Hudson Guild at the time. And that was in the beginning of the days of the membership companies. And at that meal, he asked me if I would like to be the new artistic director of this theater company. Wow. And of course, I said yes immediately after swearing it off, and that began the journey we're talking about. So he says, meet me at the theater on Monday. I'll introduce you to the producer who's holding down the fort. You guys can talk. Met him, the little theater at the Little Hudson Guild. It's 10 a.m. in the morning. I walk in, the lights are on. I turn the corner, looking down the hallway, and there stood the most beautiful woman I had ever seen in my life. I thought to myself, wow, maybe I'm getting lucky. Maybe something good is happening in my life. And there she was. Jeannine was standing down there, and we walked down and said hello. And I was hit by lightning bolts right away. And first of all, we worked really hard to figure out how to survive the theater company. And then I immediately fell in love. And then she was trying to figure out how to keep me away.
Okay, let's jump to Jeannine's point of view.
Oh,
as you see this guy who is smitten, who has goo eyes for you, and then what are you thinking in this moment?
I was raised to keep professional and personal like separate. So let's just say it wasn't love at first sight for me. But we worked together really well.
Well, I was the worst of myself at that point.
You know, he'd come from New York. He was wearing a lot of leather.
Totally insecure, scared, wondering what was going to happen next in my life, doing and saying and a whole lot of things I shouldn't have done or said, and just stumbling over myself in my bad time of life, because that's really where the story goes. Is I know it's a big, powerful, nutty word to use, but in some ways true, saved from falling off the edge where I thought I was, because I was not doing well as a person.
So Jeannine, I just want to ask Jeannine, how did this transition from I'm keeping my professional and personal life distance to you guys becoming married?
Okay, so we were working on a play, producing it, not acting in it, and I would call my mom and I'd complain about Jack, and I'd call and complain about Jack, and my mom goes, I don't know, I think maybe you're in love with him. And I said, no, that can't be. And then meanwhile, I had met Jack's parents because they came to see him in a play called, it was a...
He knows, Habitation of Dragons.
Yes.
And I met his parents outside the theater, and I saw his mom do this to him. And his mom wasn't a subtle person, being a person from the Center Ring and Ringling Brothers. And I heard him say, how about Jeannine? Because Jack was dating some other girl.
Who was there that night?
Maybe a week later, Jack and I were sitting at a restaurant, and we were going over, it was late, and we were sitting in a restaurant eating pasta. It was funny, spaghetti again. And we're going over the budget. And Jack said, okay, so the budget is, I'm in love with you. Just came out of his mouth. And it hit me. And I said, oh I think I'm in love with you too. And we just took a moment, and then Jack got up and said, I have to make a phone call. And then he used a payphone and called his girlfriend and broke up.
I was in a place of 20 years of reckless stupidity in relationships. And I had this really strong feeling at that moment that I was being given an opportunity to get myself right. This was powerful for my life story. And I felt the need to be honest and clean, and that's what I did. I
no double dealing. Yeah.
No double dealings. And I've lived the most magical life for the last 25 years, or almost 25 years of marriage, 24, to where I'm blessed with clarity. And I was from the very beginning. So I got lucky.
So in running the New American Theater, Jeannine, you handle more or less the business side of things, and Jack, you handle the vision department of what the theater is for and why. To some degree,
but to be honest with you, I really should chime in here. Jeannine and I have had a very vigorous dialogue about all things the entire time. In fact, there are times when I'll say, this is what I think we should do.
Yeah. And
sometimes it's met with, that sounds great. And sometimes it's met with that look of, no, that's not going to be good enough. And that makes me really mad. And then I get all upset and wonder, what am I going to do now? And then what will usually happen, though, is I'll say, all right, well, what do you think? Why do you? And her influence in terms of the plays we have chosen, the artists we have worked with, and in every aspect, the theaters we've been involved with have been at least 50-50. In fact, it's probably the best kept secret of my life is that I enjoy credit for things that Jeannine says and does. But the dynamic of our conversation, that really, to get to something that has some value, is that's where the beauty is. I'm so much better off being challenged by her questions. I'd like to think that might be possible for her. And so it really is and has been. The ideas that come out of New American Theater are quite mixed between the two of us. We churn them out together.
So the range of productions you have put on as a team, let's just do a quick hop skip through 20 years. You have done, well, you just did a John Bunzell play. You've done Titus Andronicus, which is a redux. of Shakespeare. You've done an Uncle Vanya. You've done, what is the vision?
Let's just do a couple that you wrote about. Richard III.
Richard III, yes.
Yeah, we've had so many wonderful projects along the way.
Classics and new works.
Classics and new works. Classics and new works. Yeah.
I think that's a good way to describe it. We're classic, perhaps, I don't want to use the word heavy, but we're vigorous in the classics because I find for myself, and I think Jeannine shares this, just the beauty of great writing collected over the years is worth paying attention to. And when you get involved with it, the reward is immense. But sometimes it's hard to get involved with it. A lot of what we call classics sit in a place where the form they are in keeps people from accessing them.
The ornate antique box.
Exactly. And my goal has always been to diffuse that. I've always thought that I wanted to speak, it's not like I want to bring the thing down, because I think most people are extremely aware, intelligent, and smarter than we think. So they're capable of absorbing these things if they're given them clear and clean and smartly and truthfully. That there's a place for an audience that you wouldn't expect if you dedicate yourself, which I like to think we've tried to do, to communicating the simplicity of truth inside of what seems sometimes to be complicated forms.
So you've been at the Hudson, you were in residence at the Odyssey for many years, and then you found a space in Hollywood, on Wilton Drive, and you're leasing that space? Wilton Place, excuse me.
We were. We were at the Hudson, the Odyssey, we've several spaces in Hollywood, the Hayworth Theater near downtown.
Oh, that's right. Of course, that's the Gary Bloomsack. Yeah.
Yeah, and we built 2 theaters upstairs in that beautiful space, and then we did some shows in the Valley. I think we've worked with a lot of other theater companies in the theater realm here in Los Angeles.
Yes.
But then 2-3 years ago, we ended up being in a space we called the New American Theater on Wilton Place, right? Wilton and Fountain. We built that beautiful space. It was a two theater venue of approximately 40 seats each.
And we basically gutted both and put in the new seats and really sweetened it up nicely.
Jack did the glamorous thing of finding seats in
Santa Barbara,
renting a U-Haul.
I was just thinking about it the other day. We're coming back from dropping my daughter off grad school at Santa Barbara, UC Santa Barbara. And as we're driving back on that strip that's right on the ocean, I had a memory of driving that U-Haul and my spine shivering as I'm driving down that road with this load of seats. And that was quite an experience, that drive. That was much worse than trying to lift them, which was really hard. Because you know what happens when you go out and you buy used theater seats? They never disconnect them. They give you in groups of 4 connected. It's like lifting a 2,000-pound alligator that's hungry. It's awful. And I've done that a few times in my life. The seats we put it.
Yeah, go ahead. You put in
seats at the Hayworth. This was so exciting. We're looking for seats. So we got a thing out and somebody said, well, we got some old seats. And the rumor is they're the original Pasadena Playhouse seats. And it was in a storage house in Pasadena, and they were. And so we go there and piled like bent, rusted things, all in sections of 4, stuck together in a giant pile. I don't even know how they got them to the top, are these seats. But they were beautiful wrought iron with numbers on them and beautiful wood handles. And we put those into the Hayworth. We had to carry those up steps. But in any case, I have paid the dues on seat putting in.
So what happened now? When I mentioned the space on Wilton Place, Jeannine said, "Well, we were." Has something happened?
Yeah. Something happened in the world. The pandemic, and
what pandemic? Sorry, I'm sorry.
Steven, come closer. Here's a secret. I have a secret. Yeah, so the pandemic happened right, or in the United States, right when we had closed Uncle Vanya in 2020. We're
Yep.
just about to open or host a music program because we'd had, in addition to producing our plays, we also helped other theater companies produce plays. And we were starting to become quite a little like a boutique music venue where music artists were coming in and doing numbers. We had a guy come in and do beautiful Spanish classics. We were about to have a gospel jazz group come in, and we were going to have some original guitar, folk guitar.
It was nice to have some music in there.
Beautiful. And we had to cancel all that because
we were at a turning point, or a growth possibility is really how I would say it. We just so happened to have ended our 2-year rental agreement at the beginning of February. And we were discussing not only our possible new terms with the space, which looked likely and there was no reason it wouldn't fall together. And we were discussing our vision of, okay, have we come to a place where we can renew our vision? And I think we sort of did. We had 2 really tough years, but we put on 4 plays, and our Uncle Vanya, I felt good about all 4 plays. And I especially felt that we had achieved a level of work in Uncle Vanya that I was really proud of and inspired me to think that we could do things that mattered, and we were excited about it. Mm-hmm. And that's when it all happened. So in some ways, we were left out of the mix of people who were stuck in relationships with buildings, because we were at this strange timing of our crossroads. And we were able to say, by seeing the writing on the wall, we're simply not going to be able to do that. And I don't think it would have mattered, because I don't, everything changed anyway for landlords and people who were renting theaters. But we had that clean cut kind of, but it's left us now looking for the next.
So you're essentially a gypsy company, like we
made the decision that we knew. Jack actually predicted it. I don't know how he did it, that we'd be out of, he didn't believe, remember they gave us 2 weeks. You just had to be down for 2 weeks, and you could start out, everything would open up again after people just hunkered down for 2 weeks. And he said, I remember, 2 weeks is not going to happen. This is going to be 1.5 years, 2 years. He actually said that. And I was like, that can't be, but that ended up being true. And so Jack had the vision, I have to say, that probably wouldn't be good for us to renew the lease there and just pay on an empty building that would not be responsible to a nonprofit company to do that with no actual ticket revenue coming in. And that's what's been happening.
I'm just thinking, this is just talking, my heart is breaking with the image of all those seats that you hauled down from Santa Barbara and installed in those 2 theaters.
That's only one little piece of it. And, thank you, indeed. But yeah,
we worked really hard to make that building beautiful, and with just little things like painting and putting those really good seats in, and painting the outside of the building, and improving the actors' areas in the green room and the dressing room, and it was and soundproofing and making it comfortable for artists and audiences. It was 2 years of go, and putting on all the plays and hosting other companies. It was quite a shock to just suddenly shut down like that. But it was necessary in order for the health of the organization to take that worry out of there. And that was before, of course, the city or the state or the county had come up with rent relief ideas, things like that.
Yes.
That was before that even happened. So I think we made the right decision.
I feel comfortable as a gypsy company, because really I do. And I don't know if it's just my heritage. I come from gypsies. I must have told you that story some other time. My mother literally grew up in the circus, and her whole family for generations. So there's a mentality. I mean, all the stories of getting in the car and driving to Toronto and doing a show, and then being back in New York, and
living on a train,
and living on trains, and living in trailers that, so I don't know if that's part of what makes me comfortable or sort of creates the vision for me, but I do feel comfortable that way. I've loved going in and out of so many theaters. You know, one of the things that I've really enjoyed, and I've tried to be as good an actor as I possibly can challenge myself to be, and I love making plays and attempting to do that well.
If I just may throw in, for people who may not know you as well as most people in LA do, Jack has appeared in, not in all, but in numerous of the productions put on by the New American Theater, which is the latter name for what was Circus Theatricals.
Yeah,
Right.
and it was Circus Theatricals after, he misses the name now. But
I
anyway.
think you missed that name. That's a whole other book to write.
But thank you. Also, I'm going to give your resume a little bit. In addition to our productions, he was quite prolific. And while all this 24 years, also in New York. You did how many plays at the New York Shakespeare Festival?
But
you toured the country and I
had a lot of wonderful experiences in the theater, that's for sure. But the thing I wanted to tell you that is so weird little street guy of me, I love being in a little theater, even knowing it's not the high tech, you know, I love to know how the lights work. I love to know how the electricity is flowing. I like to know how the sound system functions. And it's just a weird little thing for me that I like that hands-on, the little crafty ship we're on. I've always loved adapting to a new theater space, learning about it, almost as much as playing a great part and discovering that. You know, it's one of my little idiosyncrasies, I think.
You've both created plays for, as you say, well over 20 years and more, 25 years. And so the final question is, now that you're in the position you're in, which is not by any means the worst position that a theater company can be in, given what's happening with public health and with the finances with an SB 805 and that legislation, what is your degree of optimism that you will be able to continue, even if not in the way you did before, but you will be able to continue the motivated, propelled by the vision of why you've always been so attached to this art form?
Sure. First of all, I think it's the best art form for bringing human beings together to have important conversations. We could be in the same room and experience love, experience heartbreak, experience moments of clarity politically or socially. And I feel like the theater is the only art form, maybe live music in a small room, where you can have a true human experience that you cannot have between a screen, you know, watching a movie or being on TV. So I feel like it's one of the most important, not just entertainment, I can't think of the word, things, but also one of the important, it has a great value to humanity. So I feel optimistic that New American Theater and what we're going to do is going to survive. We already have plans moving forward to continue on, not exactly the way we were doing it before, but we are going to continue, not just because we want to, but I feel an intense need to. And I know our artists do too, and so does Jack.
Well,
I'm speaking for you. I
No, that's okay.
Words in your mouth.
First of all, we are going for it. So one has to sometimes decide you are doing it without knowing how, or how it's going to go, or how it's going to feel, or if it's a smart idea. You're just doing it. And so that's at least where we are. We're doing it. But you know what? One thing I will share with you is that, and perhaps we've talked about this before, but I hope to whatever we do, be involved with something that creates relevance and nourishment for our community. So that's my goal. However we end up doing that, I believe we both still would like to do that. We'd like to do that for the people and that we know and love, our friends and our community, especially for our daughters. So we still have that desire to maybe affect things in a positive way. How the theater goes, but you know, we'll see. We've got a lot of things challenging us. But my own personal challenge I must share with you is it doesn't feel too different than it always felt. And I think I've shared this with you before too, is I have the hardest time picking the next thing and knowing and feeling right about it, and that it's important enough or that it somehow means enough to do it for people now, because it seems to me the condition we're all in is often feels like struggle. Lately, perhaps more so than usual, but and then the struggle becomes, how do you fight for something to offer? And I think that's what we're going to find out. But we're going to ask ourselves to wage that fight with our own inner demons. So we'll see, but it's doable. And we just got to get lucky on a few issues, especially the COVID and how it unfolds and continues to become possible. You know.
Jeannine Wisnosky Stehlin and Jack Stehlin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Stephen. It's always really wonderful to see you.
Next week, we're joined by performer, director, and producer Inger Tudor. Inger has performed at various theaters across Southern California. She's a graduate of the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, as well as Harvard College and Harvard Law School. She is the female lead in a just-released movie about the Federal Theatre Project's all-black production of Macbeth in the 1930s, directed by a 20-year-old Orson Welles.